Hi guys, long time no speak. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Odette and this little bobbing head is our little boy. He's not very happy at the moment, so I've got him with me so I can keep him quiet for a bit. I promised you guys a pregnancy video, and our little boy is now 10 weeks old, so it's been a long time coming. I was basically going to do it when I went on maternity leave. I got part way through my maternity leave and decided I couldn't be bothered, and actually it might be best to wait until after he'd been born so that I could give you a bit of a labour update as well. So I'm basically going to start from the beginning, which was when we got engaged, and go through like getting married and stuff, and just give you a bit of my experience of pregnancy and labour. I had a really good pregnancy and a really good labour in comparison to some people. I've got two friends who are not having such a good time, or had such a good time, so I feel very lucky and very blessed to have had the experience that I've had, especially for a first baby, because it definitely has not put me off. But we'll start at the beginning. So we obviously got engaged and we decided that we were going to start a family once we got married. And I decided that 3 months before we were due to get married, I was going to stop my pill. So I stopped my pill in January, and we were getting married in March. Sort of mid-January to late January, I started taking folic acids as well. And the midwives like you to start taking them as soon as you find out you're pregnant. And if you're going to try for a baby, they like you to start them obviously as soon as possible before you start trying to have your baby. We then went on our honeymoon, which obviously caused a major hoo-ha because we were going to the Maldives, and in the Maldives they have the Zika virus. So we called our doctors just to check whether we needed any jabs for things like malaria. They said no, just like update tetanus and things like that, but that we needed to speak to a nurse about holiday travel of some sort. I'm not sure what they quite call it now, but they basically were telling us about the Zika virus, and they said to not try having a baby for at least 6 months after we've returned, because of the risks of Zika virus. So in a woman it sits in their system for something like 8 weeks, but in a man it's like 6 months. It's ridiculous. So it basically meant that we couldn't try to have children until September time, and we were hoping that we could have a very relaxed outlook on it, and just when it happened kind of thing. I did get poorly while we were away in the Maldives, and I thought I might have had Zika because I had some of the symptoms, which was chills in the night. I had a headache. So when we came back, we both had blood tests. Mine came back negative. They didn't send Dan's away because he hadn't had any symptoms, and they decided that the bites that he had actually got them once we'd got home, so they must have been some other type of bite or allergy to something since we got home, and we hadn't noticed them until the day after we got home as well. So we just decided then that we would just go on with life, and as mine had come back negative and they said it doesn't lay dormant in your system, the Zika virus, that we would just see what happened when it happened. And it was sort of in July time I started feeling sick every now and again, and it was middle of July. There was a day where I felt terrible, and I said to Dan, if I'm not pregnant, I'm dying. I felt that awful. So we did a test and we found out we were pregnant. We did just a general one that said whether it was positive or negative. So I said, right, we're going to go and get one of the ones that tells you how many weeks, and they go up to 4 weeks plus, it says, is the like latest date. And that's what it said for us. So I had no idea how far gone we were because I wasn't really paying attention, because I didn't think it would happen that quickly. Don't know why. So we went to the midwife. She tried to figure out the date, and she thought we might have been about 12 weeks. So obviously booked us in for a scan. When I went for my first scan, I was actually only 9 weeks. And because of that, they then sent me for another scan at 12 weeks. So if you don't know the date, they are likely to send you for a scan. And if you're before 12 weeks, it's likely, if it's that far in advance, that they'll obviously just send you for another scan at 12 weeks. I had 2 colds at the end of August and September, so as soon as I got rid of one, I got another one on the back of that, and obviously they don't like you taking things like paracetamol, so it was a lot of hot lemon and honey and resting, sleeping, staying off work, which wasn't great. But eventually they did go. Just took longer than they normally would for me to get rid of them. in the end of September, I went for my flu jab. They like you to have the flu jab if you're obviously going to have a baby through the winter. I don't think they'd send you for a flu jab if you're having like a summer pregnancy. And I then didn't have any other colds after that, which was good. I don't know if that's because I had the flu jab or whether I was just really lucky. And then obviously mid-October I had my 20-week scan and everything was fine. That's where they measure head size, the length of the baby, the length of their spine, and just check everything's okay. And they also give you the whooping cough vaccination, and they obviously, if you haven't had your flu jab and you're having a winter pregnancy, winter baby, they will give you that at the same time if you haven't already had it. Everything was fine with baby. They said his head was slightly smaller than normal, but nothing to be concerned about. It was still within the normal realms, so we were happy about that. And throughout my pregnancy, I really only had sickness from sort of July to September time. I then got another bout from end of December, beginning of January through to February, and that one was really hard because it was making me feel dizzy. I was hot and sweaty. I didn't feel right. I felt very out of it. So I had a couple of days off sick from work at home because I just couldn't focus on the computer. It was really hard. But after that I was fine, no sickness like towards the end of the pregnancy or anything. We had 3 antenatal classes in January, and I wanted the one that was a full day session, so you just did one session and got all the information at once. And I'm so glad they gave us the 3 separate ones at 2 hours at a time. I'm an early bird and they don't finish till 9:30, so that wasn't great for me. But there is so much information that they give you, it would be really hard to do the day's session, so I'd recommend doing the 3 sessions. I then went on maternity leave at the beginning of February, so I had basically a month off before baby came. And half of that was holiday and half of it was maternity leave. My holiday runs January to January, so I'm going to take obviously some of it beforehand and the rest of it when I go back to work, to make sure that I can fit it all in and I don't lose out any holiday. And then, oh Bobby, and then we had a sweep booked in 2 weeks before my due date. They booked me in for a sweep after my due date had passed. When I had my sweep, which was 3 days after my due date, they then booked me in for another sweep and an induction in case the sweep didn't work, or the 2 sweeps didn't work. She did say to me though, I doubt that I'll be seeing you again, because he was sitting so low, and he'd been sitting low from sort of January time he was engaged. He'd been sitting so low that they thought that the sweep would probably work, and I was really lucky that I had my sweep at about 11 in the morning, and by 3-4 o'clock everything started kicking off. By 6 o'clock my waters broke, 7 o'clock we were at the hospital, and just before 10 I had him. So I had a very quick birth and a very good birth. I literally only used a TENS machine. My plan was to use gas and air as well, but they said to me that I needed to concentrate on breathing in slowly because otherwise it would make me feel dizzy and sick, and I didn't want any of that because I'd been standing up for hours and my legs were like shaking like mad anyway. So I decided not to use the gas and air and just continue with the TENS machine, which is what I did up until the very end. And I think it was still going even after I'd had him, but my body had numbed completely that I couldn't even feel the TENS machine anymore. The one thing, I'm going to go into some gory details now about the pregnancy. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know the bad stuff. So if anything went wrong, I knew how it was going to be rectified. And some things I still didn't know about, and even up until me having him. So while I was in labour, the lady said to me, did they tell you that you had a lot of fluid? I didn't know that was a thing. I obviously had a lot of fluid surrounding him, or like in the sac with him. So some people you'll see and they'll be standing and the baby will just come out and there'll be like the normal blood and everything else that comes out with it. I was just leaking fluid the whole time, I'd never known that that could happen. I didn't know that it was that crazy. So after my waters had broke and I was in the car, I thought my waters had broken again, or I peed myself. I didn't really know what it was, but it was obviously just the fluid starting to seep out, and it continued all the way up until obviously I had him. When we got to the hospital, it was quite hard to walk into the hospital and up the stairs. They had basically said to me on the phone when we called the labour line, it was up to me whether I wanted to go in. And I said, well, my legs are pretty shaky. I don't know how far gone I am. This is my first baby. I don't want to sit at home for another hour, like you've slightly suggested, and then get to a point where it's too late and I can't get to hospital. So they said I could go in. They obviously thought over the phone that I was coping really well with it. I had been trying to do hypnobirthing, which kind of worked and kind of didn't work. I forgot all about the breathing once it came to it, but it kept me very calm throughout my pregnancy and up until the labour. So I think it did work in a way for me, and I think my relaxed approach to everything and staying really calm about it and not really thinking about the birth helped me a lot to not panic. So yeah, I got really lucky. When we got to hospital though, obviously they tried to find out how far dilated you are, and it's obviously uncomfortable, and for me it made me have a contraction. So she was trying to feel how dilated I was, and I then went into a contraction, so she then had to stop where she was with hands where they were, and just wait for my contraction to finish. And then obviously when she started feeling again, that kind of started to set it off again. So it wasn't great, but thankfully she said I was 4 centimetres dilated and I could stay, and that was obviously about 7, half 7 that she told me that. They put me into a room, and I was basically in that room until maybe 1, 2 in the morning. So bear in mind I had him at 10ish at night. We were in there for quite a while, and then they sent us into the postnatal ward. Now we wanted a room, a private room that you pay for, but they were all taken up, and they can either be taken up by people paying for them, or if someone's had a cesarean, they will put people in there for what do you call it, so keep a closer eye on them, because obviously they've had a different kind of birth. So we didn't get that. We just went into a general ward with 2 other people, which was fine, but you hear babies crying a lot, there's people coming in and out, there's nurses walking past constantly, so we didn't have a great night's sleep. Dan got to stay with me. Your partners can generally stay, they have a chair next to the bed that they can sleep in, a recliner chair. And yeah, it was a bad night's sleep, but it was one where I didn't really worry about it, because he'd come and everything was fine, and it was a really good experience, and it all happened so quickly, and it was, I'm not going to say painless, because there's no way that it was painless. But yeah, I just got really lucky, I guess. One book that I would definitely recommend, and podcast as well, to listen to if you're not a big reader, which I'm not, and I still haven't finished the book, but I've read the main bits, is Giovanna Fletcher. She did Happy Mum, Happy Baby podcast and book. It started off as a book, and she kind of goes into gory detail, so I was prepared from the book. I started listening to the podcast, and the podcast then had more details, because she talks to other people, and other people obviously have all different experiences, so you get all their stories and experiences as well. So I really enjoyed that, and I found it really helpful for me to chill me out, so that if something crazy was going to happen, I knew what the end result was going to be and how they would resolve it. So yeah, that's basically my story. I'm sure there's something I've missed, because you know, baby brain and all now. But yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave me comments down below if you want me to go into more detail. I can go into a lot more detail about everything if you really want me to. But I just thought I'd give you an overview of how my pregnancy was, and that it's not all scary, and to kind of keep an open mind and stay relaxed. Because if you stay relaxed, chances are you'll have a really good birth and pregnancy, and it will all be dandy. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you next time. Bye. Bye.